Welcome the frick back to the deepest dive on Like a Dragon Ishin, part 2, chapters 5 through 9. Spoilers. I'm Leo Vader. I'm your host with the most. Joining me is, of course, the man that you love to love, Michael Hyam.
Oh, people love to love me? That's the first time I heard of that. Comment sections would say otherwise, but thank you.
The comment section of my heart is unanimously agreed.
Oh.
We also have Jacob Geller, of course, one of YouTube's 2 golden boys.
Leo, I'd prefer if you referenced me by my true name now, the chicken racing millionaire, Jacob Geller.
Oh my god, he's cracked it, folks. He's got a system.
You found the money.
And of course, the queen of Twitch and, dare I say, gaming in general, Sarah Podzorski.
Thank you. I hope to live up to those expectations.
Yes, you all better, or I'll issue new titles at the very end. What a section of Yakuza this is.
So spicy.
Very.
So spicy.
To me, it felt like the section where you have a job, which is going to the Shinsengumi, and it's constantly walking there and walking back and doing a bunch of stuff along the way, which I genuinely loved.
The inn and the Shinsengumi headquarters are exactly opposite on the map. Like,
That's
they
right.
somehow managed to find, like, the furthest way you could walk to get to work.
Also, I'm confused why you're still at the inn at all, other than your friends are there. But it's like, you have a room. You could just, like, sleep.
With a view of, like, a really nice courtyard.
Yeah, but that room kind of sucks.
It's true. It barely has, like, a cot in it.
Doesn't even have a window.
I bet it's stinky. I mean, it's just a bunch of dudes all the time. I bet it's stinky.
Yeah.
I wish we could live at our home, but I guess we got to give Haruka her space.
Yeah, we can't live on the farm.
How have thoughts been progressing so far? Are we getting more into it, less into it, figuring it out in a more understandable way?
I would say that this block of chapters is definitely when the buildup starts to pay off. Because like last episode, we talked about prologue to 4, and we talked about how, you know, it really tries to layer on all these different factions, characters, motivations, all stuff. So it's a lot of just building. And then once we start to see the turn, I think chapter 6 is when things really start to turn, and we start to get the ball rolling on a lot of things that are set up earlier. Is when like this game really grabbed me. I'm like, okay, now I'm in for the Yakuza ride that I know and love. And it does it in some unexpected ways, and some really like not heartwarming, but just really endearing ways. Like the drama is still high, and the stakes are high, and they get even higher as you learn more and go through a lot more stuff. But I think there's so many character moments in this block of chapters that really like, oh, I remember why I love this character so much, and I have a different and deeper appreciation for them in this Edo period version of themselves.
Yeah,
so.
I 100% agree with that. I just feel like these chapters, like, I've gotten to see the characters that I know in such a more intimate way that I wasn't expecting from like a historical game. Like, it feels like there's actually more characterization in this than other Yakuza games for, like, you know, the main characters. So that was really surprising and very enjoyable.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, I'm fully in. Again, this is a thing where it's like, after this episode recording is done, I'm like, I'm going back. I got to know what happens. I do think that this series of chapters had kind of more of like a TV show vibe, in that like each chapter kind of had a similar arc with a different character, you know, where it was like, okay, now I'm having this conversation with this person, and I had a very similar conversation with a different person last chapter. But it didn't really bother me, because all of the characters are so kind of interesting and distinctive that even though Ryoma is maybe doing the same thing several times in a row, like the reactions that he's getting are really interesting and distinct.
Yeah, and we won't jump ahead too far, but it's interesting, like, multiple chapters where you think you've found the guy you're looking for. And that's a little silly, but also it's like those characters have very different reasons for making you think that.
Yeah.
I also love that they're... They're just like, I'm the guy. You found me. It's me.
And you gotta give it to him. Like, the world is kind of falling apart around him, but he is still hell-bent on finding this assassin. Like, in the face of, like, everyone's telling him no to stop, like, maybe it's not the best idea. Nope, he's still 100. No matter how bad the plan just erodes through these chapters. It just falls apart completely. He's still on it. He's still in it to win it.
Yeah. And Ryoma / Kiryu can get away with this because you know for a fact that he could win any fight. Like, that's the thing that he always has in his back pocket. And I think you quickly realize that, like, when back in the earlier chapters, when he goes to the Shinsengumi trials, it's like, well, of course he's gonna win these fights somehow because he's Kiryu and he never loses a fight. He just doesn't lose any fights. And then, like, in these later chapters, like, okay, like, his plan might be dumb, but you know he can always fight his way through it. And there are so many good ones of those, like so many good fights that you get into along the way here. So, like, not only are we just getting more and more of who all these characters are, but we're also, I think this is when the gameplay starts to shine a little bit more too, because you are putting so many one-on-one battles with these characters that I personally think brings out the better side of the combat system. So yeah, this is like just when all the good parts of the game start to really come to surface.
Starting with chapter 5, that was, of course, when you're hunting down the deserter Akimoto. Gioran has a comment that we may as well just get out of the way first thing. Didn't make it too far in because I was too busy doing side content, but I loved the line delivered by Ryoma during the mission to capture the deserter. Ryoma, speaking to Akimoto, says, "Enough. A man's got to bring ass to get ass. But you better get your ass
I wrote
gone."
it down.
Who all wrote it down? I wrote down that quote as well.
Yep.
Yeah, great line.
You know, it's funny. I wrote that down and then I was like looking at my notes, and chapter 5 now feels like 6 years ago in terms of like how much game I have played since then. So I didn't have like an attribution or a situation. I just had written, a man's got to bring ass to get ass. And I was going to be like, do y'all remember when that was said?
That line, that was the moment when I looked at Ryoma and was like, What do you mean by that? Well, like, hold on, let's take a step back. Like, we'll kill the deserter, but hang on for a second. What do you mean by that?
I believe it was the deserter being a little entitled to the women of the brothel he was hiding out in. You know, and I think that's a powerful message that I think a lot of us need to hear.
Yeah, I guess like you gotta put in the work if you want to eat. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's
ass, that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. Let's leave it at that.
Kurgles writes, I was really expecting to take on most, if not all of the Shinsengumi captains at some point in boss encounters, but they're already dropping like flies.
That's what the amount, like, either, like, and I don't want to skip ahead, but either they know that he's faking it or they're dead. Like, it seems like there's two camps right now in the Shinsengumi, and one is, we know you're a liar, and the other camp is just dead. They're really, it's not going so well internally in the corporation.
Or it's going great, at least for Ryoma, because everyone who knows he's a liar is
I am shocked
keep
at
your
his
secret.
way to just like, can we just talk about like that canon? Ryoma Kiryu has never killed anybody. And the way he's been put in so many situations where they're like, now you got to kill this man. Every single time someone else steps in to kill them. Like, I knew, like, the whole canon thing, like, Kiryu doesn't kill people. Like, I knew that. But I've never seen it so clearly have to be, like, tiptoed around than in this series, where it's like, oh, how are we gonna not kill our way out of this one, Kiryu? And then you're like, oh, shocker, someone else stabbed him. How convenient for us.
Yeah, it almost seems like less of his values and more just a complete luck that he happens to have.
Yeah.
Oh, no, how's it
when everyone is just exceptionally forgiving of his values clashing with the clan in a way that no one else gets away with. Everyone else is like one toe out of line execution for you, but Ryoma's like, I think I'm not gonna kill this guy, and they're like, that's fine.
This is what I want to say. This is just pure proof about how it's not being able to do your job well. It's just being likable. He's literally just, everyone either likes him or they're dead in a way. So it's like he is just like likabilitying himself like up the corporate ladder of the Shinsengumi.
Yeah. It's like, it also goes back to like, if he really needs to kick your ass, he will. So there's also the intimidation factor that I think that he's earned the respect like very quickly. And like in the earlier chapters, a lot of people look at him sideways and think like, who's this dude who walked in here 2 days ago? Why is he the third most highest ranking captain? Who? What? And then they actually meet him. They're like, oh snap! Like, yeah. I mean, I didn't say nothing. So at least like I don't know if it's like explicitly said in the game, but in my head I'm just like, okay, I gotta in my head. Everyone respects him. Everyone lets him do what he wants because they know that this dude is a legend in the making. So that justifies almost everything that we see in this game, I feel.
Yeah, even his greatest nemesis, Majima, is, it's primarily love that Majima feels.
Yeah.
Primarily fascination.
Absolutely.
He just shows it in a really weird way. But like, it's all love and respect all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get in fights with your bros? Like,
Yeah.
it's like I love my bro and I'll beat his ass, and we get in fights in the backyard after like a couple shots of Henny. Like that's just normal. That's just normal life.
Just because we don't feel normal hugging, this is what we'll do.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, speaking of fighting, here in Chapter 5, Yarrow describes it here. This series has always been described as an anime, and that comparison was no more apparent than in the fight with Izo towards the end of the chapter. Being the first big fight after getting trooper cards and seeing lightning chains and purple tornadoes was such an incredible combat experience. I was blown away, this is Leo talking, by the trooper system and how they held that back for this much gameplay for like 10 plus hours easily, and then suddenly there is a whole added layer to the combat that I think makes it a lot richer.
I kind of don't know. Here's my feeling about the trooper system. I don't know if it is more complicated than I understand or less complicated than I think, and just has a very confusing UI, because I've been using it. I love it. I mean, I will talk about more. I have done so many like bandit raids just from like the camp, just because I finished like these chapters and I wanted to keep playing, and so I was just doing combat. But that being said, I don't understand what like most of the tabs on the trooper card menu does. I don't really know what like promoting them means. I don't know what fusing troopers does. I don't, it's like there's just so many things that I have the option of that I've gotten by with not doing. So I would love if any of you could explain that to me.
I saw that system when they introduced it, and I was like, it's giving Majima Construction vibes, which was a earlier mini game that was sort of like a tower defense, like RTS system that they had in one of the earlier Yakuza games. And I saw it, and I was like, I did the thing that I had to do, and I was like, I'm just gonna put this over here and maybe play with it later, because it looks a little insane.
Yeah, because they gave you like a default set or whatever, and to me when I was playing through, I'm like, oh, this is good enough. Like you got the dude who can heal you, you got the dude who strengthens you up, and you got the dude who does the lightning. I'm like, cool, that's my set of powers.
Great group of dudes.
They're gonna level up, and you can equip different sets of three or four to the different stances. So it's like, okay. Right. And oftentimes I just switch stances to use the other healing dude that I had, and I think that was key. Like if I ran out of items, I think that was key. But I didn't dig too deep into the system. I mean, it does get pretty technical, but for the purposes of holding up your own, if you're playing on normal difficulty, you don't have to dig too deep in the system. But I will say that the DLC ones with the influencers and famous people on them. So I want to give a shout out to my boy Alyx Mukala, who's like one of my like a personal friend, who's like just one of my favorite like YouTube musicians. He's an actual composer musician. He weaseled his way into this game. I equipped him, and I was like, bro, you saved my life. You're in this game. I'm only using you. Also, shouts out to Rahul Kohli, who also weaseled his way into this game. The trooper card system is just like, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. It does not fit this. It does not fit the Edo period at all. It doesn't fit any conceivable notion of what's going on in this story.
Yep.
But it works because RGG can make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I am embarrassed to the extent that I feel like I'm just cheating using kind of like the DLC cards that I got for getting whatever version of the game I have, where I have one card that's Ichiban that when I activate, suddenly my sword does like 1,000 damage a strike for like 5 seconds, like a really short period of time, but it can still like shred a dude. And then I have there's a Shiba Inu where when you summon it, all of the enemies just get distracted and look at the dog, and then you can just beat up on them for like a minute, and they don't do anything.
That would work on me. That would work on me.
Yeah, there's
also a lot of dog stuff in this too, by the way.
Yeah.
Good and bad. I was shocked.
Yeah, meaty dog section for sure. We'll get to that.
There's a bear and a tiger, and you can summon each one, and it will just like attack someone, and doesn't do nearly as much damage as you'd think it would do, but still it's a bear on the battlefield, so that's fun.
Shout out to Yakuza Bear making a comeback.
Yeah.
I have gotten into the card system hoping I figure it out more still, because it's the type of thing where if we really look at those card descriptions and their abilities, which is like heal for a small amount, increase damage by a moderate amount, I'm kind of hoping for more exciting ones. I've only bought one card through the recruitment thing at the mercenary desk, the Shinsengumi barracks, and it was a really worthwhile purchase. It was a purple card that I believe it said it increased other cards' charge rates by an unreasonable amount.
That was the description.
Yes, that's the highest level of increase, is an unreasonable amount, which is fun. And yeah, putting that in, it also increases like the amount of trooper slots you can have if you have it in the corporal spot. So that seems like one of the most useful ones you can have, is letting you have a fourth corporal or a fourth, soldier ability, because they all seem to only charge when you're using that fighting style.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have the same one across multiple fighting styles and you spend that ability, it's spent on the other fighting style too. So that stuff, it's interesting trying to make builds for that, and I do enjoy that little element of it. Those sprinkles on top of the already good combat.
Yeah, definitely helps you, or it encourages you to switch stances more often, because I feel like that I stuck with swordsman for like a good long while until I started to really understand the trooper card system. We're like, oh, if I know how to manage with this other style, then I could at least get something out of the trooper cards while I use them. So it is quite smart in that way. Just little ways to break you out of your mold, where I'm just not swinging my sword the whole time. So it's a cool system. It doesn't have to be that deep if you don't want to, but I do appreciate that it's at least there.
It also has a little depth, adds a little depth to the random side fights you get into, because if there's like a masked man there at the end, they'll ask to be recruited, which we already talked about Ryoma never killing anybody. And, that's whatever, the ludonarrative dissonance, who cares? Doesn't bother me. But it is so funny to like get mugged by someone and beat them up, and they go, can I join the Shinsengumi? And you say yes. After your conversation of like, I'm going to change a Shinsengumi from the inside. It's not going to be the same old story.
No, it's like you get mugged, you shoot that guy 3 times in the throat, and then he's like, can I join you?
It's like, damn, dog, you inspired me when you whooped my ass.
And then he hands you a card, and it's like, here's my resume. And you're like, okay, maybe. Let's see. I think we can squeeze you in.
And the description is like a poor fit for promotion. Sometimes it says along the bottom.
Yeah, would not make a good corporal. This leads us to a lovely deepest dive comment, S tier deepest dive comment from Shinji. Jacob had brought up the lack of automation during the Another Life section last week, and I just wanted to let you guys know that it's like that because the dev team at the time wanted you to do it on the Vita app they'd released alongside the original version. The Vita companion app lets you do the dungeon crawling sections, all that mercenary stuff we were talking about, and Another Life stuff, and would let you transfer your save between your PS3, PS4, and the Vita. It's exactly like Kojima's transferring tech. Thank you, Shinji, for that.
I cannot believe the future was in the past.
Yeah.
We were so close to greatness.
I have to take my freaking boat back to my farm to harvest my turnips. And in the past, I could have just done it on the Vita.
We turned on companion apps as a species, but Lord, what I would give to have that. Be able to just do the like grinding in bed.
Yeah.
After playing,
Hey, yo.
it'd be amazing.
Think or just like on your phone, like just like keep harvesting your crops, and that
Yeah.
would be that would
Be
be
like-
Incredible mobile game.
I'm fast forwarding through the conversation with the veggie loving boy, which for some reason takes like 45 seconds
kid
every
is
time you talk to
insatiable.
it. And so I
He
could
eats
just
so many
harvest my crops.
veggies.
Do you guys figure out his favorites?
No, I gave up on him after I gave him an onion.
Oh, I just give him a
Oh.
different one every time. But it's his
Gave
bar
up. I was
goes
like, I
up.
don't have time for you.
His bar goes up just so slowly, maybe because I'm not giving him the vegetables he likes.
I'm collecting dogs. I got all the dogs. Now I'm on to cats.
How many dogs are there?
I have 3 so far. And I
Nice.
think 3's the max, but I'm just started working on the cats.
I only got the one cat by the dock who keeps falling in,
The
and I keep
filthy
having to go
cat!
bathe it. And you bathe it fully 10 times before its story progresses, which is like it got beat up or whatever in the street. I don't even remember the exact thing, but it's a group of people surrounding this cat, like, oh, what happened to this cat? And Ryoma busts through. Everybody's like, whose cat is this? Whose cat is this? He busts through and he goes, that's my cat. And then you bring it up. Wonderful.
My favorite pet line is with the dog that won't stop barking, which is the first one that I adopted, where you just give it a bone several times, but eventually when you get to the end of its quest line, there are some people who are going to take it and kill it because it's just like out there, and you're like, I'll adopt the dog. And the woman says, well, what kind of nutcase adopts a dog just so some people won't drown it in a river?
Jesus Christ.
Good line.
No, yeah, it's a lot. That dog did interrupt my flow along the main quest. Like, well, I think we talked about this last episode. There's just so many. The fact that they make you walk from one end of the map to the other, you know damn well what they're trying to do. It's like, hey, check out these 5 sub stories before you get to the next objective. And one of them
I was
that
trying
dog.
to get to I was trying to beeline the main quest, and it was like, here's a courier sub story that you have to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
you got
go
roped
run a
into it.
mile, and I was like, I'm busy. I've got to go to work.
Yeah, especially when it seems unmissable, like it's on that one path you always take between
Yeah,
the
they
two
know.
regions.
They know.
And it's like, yeah, the old man asked me to help him on his Palanquin ride, and I'm like, do I have to? Should I really? I'm gonna try not doing it. And then I
feel
don't.
bad.
You gotta, and then you hear a beautiful woman's voice, and Ryoma thinks, I
Never
bet the
get to
lady
see
in there
her.
is really pretty. And then
You
the
never
mission
get to see her. I was like, okay, she's gonna be really ugly or maybe very beautiful. Like it could go either way, and then no reveal.
And yeah, well, if they did, we'd be talking about it now and we'd be done with it. But now we'll be theorizing for decades about what that lady looked like. The Palanquin rides the regular fast travel system, which I am pronouncing it right. I think that is the biggest missed opportunity for me is building that bond, unlocking just that one other fast travel opportunity. I wanted to be able to keep building that bond and get more and more new locations.
Right.
And then concluding with getting to go straight to the villa. That feels like a softball to me from a gameplay perspective. But maybe they don't want to break the lore of you having to go over the
they're
water.
like, it's like, we've unlocked one. It's kind of more convenient, but it's not like exactly the place you want to go. And then, then no more. And also sometimes they're just not there. They're just, it's like, oh, you can't take one right now. Probably because you'd run into a mission or something.
Story reasons, yeah. There's automatic cutscenes along the way, so
That's
I
right.
get it. It's just RGG game design things.
That's how you know you're in for it. When you open
Yeah.
the map and a bunch of stuff disappears, you're like,
I'm like,
uh-oh.
oh, something's happening.
Nowhere safe. And moments like in Chapter 6. Remember going through that pathway and finding who else? The freaking guy from the start. What was his name?
Oh wait, can we I don't want to skip past chapter 5 though. We got sidetracked, but there is some interesting stuff that happens.
Please hit me
there. So we talked about Akimoto, the deserter, and you're going to kill him, or you're supposed to kill him and you don't, and then Todo kills him. I did just want to call out his vocal performance is so interesting because his normal voice is pretty kind of squeaky. it's like so many men in this game have these like incredibly deep, imposing voices, and then Toto is a lot of times just like, "Hey, what you doing over there? Come on, I'll follow you around." But then when he kills this guy, he was like, "And we put men by the back door too. He would never have got out." Like, it feels like he's doing his Batman voice, and then the mission ends, and he's back to like, "Okay, meet you at the barracks." And it's just like, it's a very, I like it as a character moment of him being like, he's like, "No, I'm not a bullshit guy. Like, I will also kill people thoughtlessly, but I'm still fun-loving and kind of silly."
Yeah, it does kind of fit his character in Like a Dragon, because when you meet Tianyun Zhao in Like a Dragon, your first impression of him is like, oh, he's a Majima type who will kill when he has to and doesn't blink an eye, or he doesn't even blink when he needs to do it. And then throughout that game, it's like, oh, he'll cook for his friends, and he's kind of a like swagged out. Oh, he's the young one. He's a cool dude. So I do like that is very in character for him, I feel like.
Yeah, and then I just thought the Izo fight was so cool, or not even the fight, but just the cutscene where he seemingly kills half of the Shinsengumi like in a second. He slices that dude's ankles in a moment that made me go, "Oh," out loud, because it was just so like surprising and gross.
Yeah.
Gruesome. Any other chapter 5 thoughts? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
No, I think I'm good. Oh well, this is when we first. No, never mind. That's next chapter.
Well, we're in next chapter now, so hit me with it.
Go, Sarah, you go.
No, you can go.
Yeah. So. Have we seen Conduit till at this point? The captain.
That's next chapter.
Okay, never mind then. I was gonna say something.
This is the Ikedaya Inn incident.
Yes, Ikedaya
Inn is a real incident.
Yeah, it was. This is like
really.
Yeah, it was a real thing, a real like raid. It was. I wouldn't say like. Well, it was kind of a like a turning point in that era of Japan, like the actual Edo period, when these political factions were kind of at each other's throats. So this is based on true events, which is pretty cool to see.
It's giving like the Alamo vibes,
kind of,
where there's like, it's like a big moment. But I was reading up on what happened to the Ikedaya Inn. Apparently, there's a pachinko parlor on top of it now. So all good things come to an end. Now I can't unsee a pachinko parlor on that inn. But anyways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you want to break down what happens for us in the game, Sarah?
Sure. Well, I believe in the game. Let's see. I know that it comes to their attention that like the Choshu are, so like the Shishi, so the anti-shogunate, the anti-Bakufu people are getting together and sort of like planning a plot to, is this the one where they're going to burn down Kyo, or they're going to burn down the city? Essentially, they're going to burn down something really bad. They're going to do some terrorism.
Well, it was the way that at least they explained it, and I was a little confused with then how it ultimately panned out, was they were like, they're going to set fire to the palace, even though they actually like the palace. So then everyone else will rush in, and then they'll kill all of them. They were like going to do it as a ploy. But then when you got there, they weren't actually doing that. And so I was a little confused.
They were talking about, it was like they were going to like discuss it, right? Yeah. That's the reason they were at the inn. It's like basically everyone who was going to be involved in this like terrorist act was gathering at the inn to kind of like discuss how they were going to do it. And then the Shinsengumi were like, we can surround the inn and just get them all in one area. And then we know for sure that this plot is happening. But I will say, like, the amount of, like, one thing that I wasn't expecting is, like, they're always, like, they're like, oh, we're, like, scoping out the inn. And it's like, there's, like, 10 guys out here in matching T-shirts. We are not, like, we are, like, and nobody saw this coming. Like, there's, like, 10 of us just standing out here waiting for something to happen. Did no one, like, look outside? I don't know. It happens multiple times.
I did think the run-up to that mission was really cool, just because you're going through the streets, which are normally, like, bustling with drunk people, and they're, like, essentially empty except for Shinsengumi people who were all like camped out, and so it really felt like the city had been like militarized for a night, which was interesting. But this was also the place in the story where I wrote the note, why was my tryout so hard? Because there are just like 36 Shinsengumi who go into this hotel that all get killed immediately and seem bad at fighting, and yet I had to like fight one of their chief generals or whatever to even get my foot in the door.
See, you accidentally showed up to captain tryouts and not like university. Like you accidentally came at the wrong time. But yeah, a very bloody battle, and I love the Yakuza sequences where you're kind of fighting through a building, and I love that, and I love kicking down like screen doors, like the sliding screens. Like that is like quintessential like samurai movie to me. It's just like busting through those doors to fight a bunch of guys. So that was, I believe, like I think that's like one of my favorite fights so far in the game. Yeah, was doing the Ikedaya Inn. And Akiyama also like winked at me, and I'm like still haven't recovered yet. It's really like it's really hard how they try to like villainize certain sides in this, but then they put my favorite character there too. They're like, oh, like, you know, what is Akiyama Choshu? They're like, oh, the Choshu are planning on burning down the Imperial Palace and then killing all the Shinsengumi. And then Akiyama like winks at me and he's like, see you on the other side, buddy. And I'm like, oh, God, what am I supposed to think? Like anything you say, Akiyama.
I got you, bro. I'll do anything for you, man. Yeah, that fight was good because it was just like a really good string of sequences to like really get in the weeds of the combat system and all that. Like just walking down the hallways or the corridors and having dudes like pull you into a separate room.
Right. They would pull you in and shut the door and be like, okay, I guess like you three guys have signed up to die now.
That's
but
so
not
funny.
Die because he doesn't kill anyone.
Yep. Yeah, it was a ton of fun, and accumulating up into that boss fight and this is one of the things that Yakuza does so well is that when you get into this really intense fight or conflict with somebody, but you don't quite know what side they're really on, they're like, okay, they're putting up a front for a specific reason, or do they really want to kick my ass? And this was just like top tier Yakuza fight, like nonsense. But that fight with Akiyama where, it was a tough fight, first and foremost, but like afterwards when like the rest of the Shinsengumi pull up and they're like, oh, we finally got your back. And then the winks and nods between Akiyama or Kogoro and Ryoma, where they're like, okay, like, remember what I told you before? Trust me, I'm still on your side. This and that. And then when Kogoro kind of switches from like whispering and winking and nodding to Ryoma to like yelling things out loud, like, yo, I'm gonna kill you. And it flows so well because Akiyama's character he's just hot, but also I love how expressive that character is because he does. I mean, all the dudes in Yakuza really feel like they're just angry all the time. But Akiyama is one character who does have like a range of emotions, which you can see on his face. So the fact that he's put in that position is like a perfect fit for me. So
I did like that fight because he was like, it's not for real. It's a fake fight, bro. It's not for real. It's not for real. And I was like, pumping him full of bullets. Yeah, and his blood was like splurting everywhere. And I was like, it's just a prank, bro. Like, don't worry. It's just play fighting.
Genuinely, one of my favorite like cutscene moments of the game is when you run into him. I also think it's very funny referencing people by their name in the other Yakuza series because it's kind of like it's like watching Batman and then being like, and then Christian Bale beat up the Joker, where it's like
we're just like mixing and matching all their different.
So I only know him as Kogoro, but you going into that room, him being like, please don't fight me, I'm surrendering, listen, we're on the same side, and suddenly he like runs at you and the swords clash, and Ryoma's like, what are you doing? Or no, Ryoma's like a pretty underhanded trick, and Kogoro whispers and he's like, look, I will do underhanded stuff to win, but that's not what's happening right now. And you look behind you and like the Shinsengumi are running down the hall and you suddenly like get it is just like, oh, what a perfect kind of we're fighting, but we're not actually, enemies moment. It was so exciting. I loved that fight.
Yeah, that was.
And then he jumped out the window and everybody looked at you and I was like, oh no, he escaped.
What do I do? Oh my God, I really messed up. I'm so
guys,
sorry.
He was really tough, you guys.
And when they catch up later, like, it's obvious that you let him go. Nice try. It's like, I fought that fight like normal.
I know. It's like, first of
go.
all, I killed my way up to, like, everyone saw me kill my way up to that top floor, and you thought I just, like, whiffed at the end? Maybe I did, but rude of you to not appreciate my contribution.
Yeah, didn't I whoop all your asses at tryouts, huh? How about that?
Yeah, but it's so funny that Nagakura is like, he's like, yeah, I know you let him win. Just keep it between us. Don't let it happen again. And I'm like, we didn't have to fight at all. Like, he would have been fine. He apparently would just like let one guy go.
Yeah,
you get one freebie. And everyone after that you gotta pay for.
Yeah, the
Except
way
for
that
Yoma gets like 5 freebies.
because everybody loves him. Yeah, the way like Nagakura like, kind of Shinpachi like lets he just you get the feeling that he just knows, like he knows, because he's not like super high up there on, and his character is kind of like he wants to first and foremost he stays true to himself. So it's really cool to see like Taiga Saijima's character kind of still be that sort of loyal, but also true to himself, like identifying with Ryoma in these moments to where he thinks outside of the Shinsengumi, like one of the few characters who at this point you think or that you see think outside of the Shinsengumi. So it's like, okay, like I think that's my bro. I can rely on him not to snitch, but also, we can keep secrets between each other. And it really shows in the following cutscene at the end of this chapter. And it's a very tense moment. I really liked what happened at the end of this chapter when they were so close to blowing his cover. And then, what's his name? Inoue, like, it was unexpected too. It was kind of like, it was
really
genuinely
felt like
surprising.
We weren't gonna get out of that one when they were like, kill. It's like such a weird moment because you think that they're talking about you and they're like, somebody at this table is a little trickster, and you're like, how did they know? This plan was foolproof. And then they like point at another guy, and you're like, oh shit, I got out of it. And then they're like, but now you have to kill him because he's being mean to you. And I'm like, oh god.
And he was so close to snitching at the very last moment.
But it's like, it wouldn't have even mattered if he snitched because everyone knows what you're doing. We find out. It's just like everyone is aware.
We don't know that yet.
There's a time and a place to snitch.
It's hilarious that it feels like every time a Shinsengumi captain dies, it's like somehow your fault, but like indirectly your fault that they die. Because it's like that guy died because first of all, he was doing bad things, but he was also calling attention to Ryoma, like being extremely sus. And he was like, this guy is like extremely sketchy. And he just showed up out of nowhere, and no one's asking any questions. And they're like, and then they just ended up killing him instead.
There's like, you're the one asking too many questions, buddy. You're looking a little suspect. I'm like, all right, yeah, he's totally suspect. Yeah, get him.
This is also the point where I really started noting every time Ryoma has just the worst poker face that anyone has ever had, where it's like someone will say a name and he's like, did he say? And then they'll be like, what, Ryoma, do you have anything? And he's like, no, nothing. And it's like he's so terrible at maintaining cover.
Oh,
yeah. That's funny because that's last episode we were talking about like how poorly thought through the plan was and like hoping that would make sense later in the story, and that seems to be what's happening here throughout all these chapters. That's been the running theme, is like, yeah, his plan wasn't good and it didn't work, but it's happening to work for other reasons.
If you think you think about it, that like last meeting at the Ikedaya Inn incident was just like a really bad game of Among Us, where like it like literally felt like an Among Us game, but like everyone was in on it, that they knew who the traitor was and they were fine with it, and they just turned on a crewmate because they were like a little also sussy. I don't know.
That is exactly what Sean Mills wrote to us Sean said, I really like the end of this chapter with the reveal that there's another spy in the Shinsengumi. It felt like a social deduction game where no one is sure of what everyone else's motivations are. It got me wondering, though, how does the Shinsengumi function like this? It seems like every mission, some of the captains are either killed or severely woonded.
Clearly, they are not functioning.
Yeah.
Well, they just add a general at a random tryouts. That's how it works.
They desperate, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he also points out that no one is even sure where the leader of the group is.
Yeah,
right.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dysfunction it's part of how you come to understand the Shinsengumi, and I like it kind of speaks to like all the political factions in this story is that they're all dysfunctional on some level, and there's so much infighting, and this is also true of any of the Yakuza stories. If you think about the Tojo clan or the Omi alliance throughout the years, is that there's always infighting, there's always a clash of ideals internally. So it felt like very familiar ground to where, oh, okay, I definitely understand what's happening here. Because like when I think about like, oh, what is the purpose of the Shinsengumi? And I kind of had to like rethink like, oh, they're a branch, they're an arm of the the shogunate. So in a way, they're not necessarily like the ones in power. They're just the ones who can bully everyone. And it's like a perfect breeding ground for just like the worst of the worst people to try to seize that power. So once that Among Us type of tension started playing out, I'm like, oh, okay, yep, this is the perfect setting for that.
And you have like several pretty interesting conversations in this where like first they ask Ryoma like, hey, why are you here? Like, what are you doing in this? And then he asks them, and more than one answer is like, I just wanted to kill people. I just wanted to join an organization where I could kill people without consequence. And last episode I said, okay, he's joining the cops. My opinion has not changed as to what they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and can I just say how funny I think it is that they're like, let's go back to the warehouse, and the warehouse is just like a code name for their like secret torture room, but like it's also a warehouse. Like they're like, oh, like could you just like meet me at the warehouse? And I'm like, in like a we're gonna chat way, or in like a you're about to torture me way, like, and yeah, the Shinsengumi is basically like a special psyop like SWAT team of shogunate protectors, but they're also just out of control. Like leadership's barely there. Like there's no middle management. I can't believe Ryoma actually has to like do his job at any point, which he doesn't. He does a great, like, what a great employee, despite the fact that like he's on the other side technically. Like I don't think
not getting paid.
No, I don't think once he's been like, oh, Mashishi loyalist. Like, I mean, he tries to catch up with Date slash Shintaro Nakaoka. He's like, hey, did you hear about this? And he's like, no, bro, I don't know about this. And then they meet up at the inn, and don't they have like a conversation at one, or they look at each other? And I'm like, can we be a little more undercover? Can we be a little less obvious when he like hesitates to go in?
It's so funny. Oh my god, the Shinsengumi is like, it's indicative of corporate life, you know? Just bad folks trying to get a leg up on each other with no organization to keep them in check.
Yep, there you go. Chapter 7, I'm excited to talk about. The two Ryomas. That was an interesting premise from the jump, that somebody is pretending to be us after a year of us away.
Of us pretending to not be us.
Right. And that is a great moment, like Jacob pointed out, when their name is said to you and you have nothing. You audibly go, whoa, that's weird. That's me. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Nothing. Yeah. Kurgle says, I was delighted that Kondo immediately reveals he knows your real name because every step of Saito's infiltration was just incredibly clumsy, and the writers seem pretty aware of this.
Yeah. No, I was relieved as well. But like the entire, so with that meeting, right? The Kondo Ryoma meeting where it's like, first you go to like talk to that one guy, you try to get him to tell you that you're like, hey, remember, wasn't Ryoma like, I will sit here until you admit that you talked to Sakamoto Ryoma? And the guy was like, there's the door, like there's the door, you can help yourself. And then he just left. I was like, well, weren't we just talking about how we weren't going to leave and how we were going to sit here until Sakamoto tells us, not Sakamoto, who is it? It's Ryuji, but Saigo,
yeah.
Yeah, like, we tell Saito, like, we're gonna sit here until you tell me that you met with Sakamoto Ryoma, which I know you did because I saw it in a cutscene. And he's like, okay, bestie, you're gonna, there's someone's here to see you out. And then we just left immediately. And we're like, time to go meet my boss, who I really wanted to meet anyways, but I've got nothing for him. Didn't do my job very well.
Yeah. I feel like this is of course it's like a necessary setup for the rest of the story, but this is where I started to get a lot more confused about what the game was trying to tell us in terms of a story. Like I get the idea, like, oh, someone is trying to impersonate me. Are they trying to slander me or paint a certain picture of my legacy, or are they trying to get to me? Of course, like that's part of the mystery that kind of perpetuates and pushes you through the rest of it. But I think it was just a little too esoteric or removed from the rest of what was happening, where I'm like, huh, ain't that some like,
this is the one that felt like episode 12 of like a 20 episode television series where it was like they just kind of need to set some characters up for like what's going to happen in the finale, and they need a plot line in the middle. Because dumb question, like, what happens with the other Ryoma? Like, where is that plot now? You know, at the end of our section, do we know anything about it? Okay, but it doesn't. It kind of felt like it was a thing that he really cared about a lot, and then obviously some very intense stuff happens over the next couple chapters. But it was just like, oh, I guess that other Ryoma is still out there doing something.
If they were trying to set up the fact that the Satsuma clan is buying weapons from the British in that scenario, because that's technically what that Sakamoto Ryoma was doing, is he was like brokering some kind of deal between like the British and the Satsuma clan for weapons or something. But yeah, that was kind of one of those weird, unnecessary, well, it's probably going to be necessary later, but you're like, okay, why are you showing me this now?
Yeah, at this point it was kind of like, wait, do you have to use my name? Like, damn,
I'm not using it, so like, yeah, you could use it, but like,
it's like, oh, you could have at least asked. You could have left like a note at the end and be like, hey, I'm gonna use your name, bro. And be like, well, at least you told me ahead of time instead of just surprising me. Someone else telling me someone's using my name. Like, you never want to hear that. So yeah, it started to get a little bit more confusing, but I think there's still a lot of good juicy stuff in this chapter. Like, I think this is when we see Kondo for the first time, right?
This is when you meet him for the first time. Which, by the way, absolute CEO behavior to never be in the office and be out like drinking with the babes in like the red light district,
drinking
like,
and harassing women.
Yeah. Absolute head of company behavior.
For sure, playing Marco Polo.
Yeah,
madman type behavior over here.
Yeah. What do we think about the Adachi casting?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, what? Why Adachi? Because Adachi is like a pretty unassuming character in Like a Dragon. He's kind of a bubbly dude who's like kind of carefree in a way. He never really takes himself seriously. He doesn't really take anything else seriously, and he's kind of a comfort character for Ichiban in Like a Dragon. So to see him, I guess it does kind of fit because he's the aloof CEO of the company. It's like, oh yeah, of course, that's kind of who he'd be. But when he gets very serious in this moment, in this chapter, when you see him in very serious moments, it's kind of like, I don't know about that one. I don't know if I believe you, man.
I just think it's funny. I mean, it's like I think he's a very good actor, and I think it's really fun to see him having played, you know, in Like a Dragon, his character is essentially cop who's 3 days from retirement or 3 days after. Like, he keeps being like, I lost my pension for this is like his kind of big recurring joke. And so it's seeing him do this is like, oh, he's getting the serious turn. He's getting to do, you know, like a prestige picture. But I just like, I never believed him as like someone that would actually intimidate Ryoma in a fight in any way. You know, it's like when they start fighting, I was just like, I'm gonna win this easy. Like, look at this dude. I just don't believe it.
He's adorable. He's like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, he reminds me of like my adorable uncle who will buy me stuff when I was a kid. Like, it doesn't intimidate me.
You do beat him, he's like, you're not the assassin. You suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that he has like I believe his charisma, he has that cool leader thing of like, even though he's a CEO and he seems like he kind of sucks and he's not there, it's like he starts talking and you're like, I do understand why this guy's in charge. That like he has kind of a gravitas to him.
Yeah,
and then he reveals, which I feel like we're kind of missing. We've discussed it, but like the big thing is that he's known the entire time that you are Sakamoto Ryoma. He knows that you're looking for the assassin with the Tennen Rishi style. Like he's known this entire time. So he basically calls Ryoma's bluff, and Ryoma goes on this like really long monologue that essentially just ended with "See you in the office on Monday, I guess." Like, okay, cool. Anyways, I'll, let me know what my next assignment is. Like, it just ended with like him calling him out, and then Ryoma being like, okay, but like, I'm still gonna be here working for you until I find the assassin. It's like if your boss came up to you, said, I know that you lied on your resume, and you just went, okay, well, see you tomorrow. Like, that was it. That was the entire conversation.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, because Ryoma was like, hey, you know what? I can do the job. Like, what does it matter what my resume is? And it speaks to the kind of his magic ability in the story of just like, he can resolve any conflict by winning a fight, because once he wins the fight, the other person has to respect his side. And so it's like, even though nothing really changes when he beats Kondo's like, well, you did beat me in a fight, so I guess you can keep doing your thing and I'll keep doing my thing.
God, you're just such a team player. Like, I can't lose a strong player like you off this team.
Yeah. It's like, oh damn, I got caught with a gun charge, but the team ain't gonna they're not gonna cut me. I'll be a free agent for someone else at some point, so you might as well keep me around. And and to that point though, it's almost like this tacit understanding that they can both use each other. Like, okay, like I know who you are and what your motivations are, but in that process, I'm going to make you do the things that I want you to do so you can get what you want. And that's kind of like always the thing about Yakuza is like, there's always a trade-off. There's always someone using somebody, whether it's explicitly stated or not. You kind of just know like, oh, if you buy into this organization, if we have this kind of agreement under the table, we are going to use each other to some end. And I think we'll see that kind of play out over the chapters, that it is mutually beneficial to, even though I know that you're infiltrating and that you're not who you say you are, that you will eventually come around and help me get to my end goal. Because everyone just, at the end of the day, like kind of, it's the story of Yakuza is that everyone is in it for themselves and everyone's using each other. So in a way, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I see what they're trying to set up here.
And his plot was specifically that he wanted to burn Kyo down, kidnap the imperial family, and move the capital to Edo. With Ryoma was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm pretty sure he just said no, and then we fought. And then I was like, are you still going to try to burn the city down and move the capital for no reason? Because basically, the shogunate was based out of Edo. That was their seat of power. But the imperial family was still living in Kyo. And it was still considered, Kyo just literally stands for capital. Eventually, after everything falls apart, the capital does just get moved to Edo. And that's why we call it Tokyo, which means East Capital. So, like, wow. Fun fact, Kyoto is just capital. Tokyo is East Capital and is officially the capital of Japan now. But it's like, I don't think this is a historically accurate plot, because in my opinion, I was like, and kidnapping the imperial family and burning down a city is going to do what for us in this moment? So it just felt like the game dev trying to like ham fist like both sides are bad and like willing to sacrifice Japan for like their own, because it mirrored the Shishi plan of like burning down the imperial palace a little bit too closely. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Are we still burning Kyoto down? Like, is that still happening?
I don't know. All we learned from that is that it's like far over the line for Ryoma. He was like prepared to lose everything else before doing that, prepared to give up his cover. This isn't the jump that it seems like from what we're talking about. Procyon number 6 writes, "Hey, veggie-loving deepest divers. I maybe died once up until the Palanquin Paladin escort mission, where I kept failing due to the Palanquin taking too much damage. Anyone else notice this difficulty spike? If not, where did you find the biggest jump in difficulty? For me, this Kondo boss fight was a lot. I thought it was a boss fight you were supposed to lose narratively and stopped trying like halfway through. Because of how much trouble I was having.
I did have an issue with the side story with the Palanquin because it kept like running into me while I was shooting, and it kept like pushing me along with it unnecessarily. So that was a little annoying. I will say I personally play ever since Yakuza 3. I play on easy. Yeah. Because like I am not here for a hard time. I'm here for a good time. And Yakuza combat can be incredibly frustrating. And some of those boss fights, even in like the later chapters, like the next chapter, I think specifically, there were a few boss fights that I was like, how are people getting through this? Because like, I'm just here to shoot my gun and watch some cutscenes.
Yeah, I feel you on that. It's one of those things where a lot of the fights in Yakuza feel like a war of attrition, and it's a matter of having enough healing items on deck, honestly. Yeah. And that's kind of... especially in the PS2 versions of the games, which I played through, and like the early PS3 era games, where it's just like, all right, give me all of the Stanaman XXs in my inventory, and I can get through it. And there are moments in this game that feel like that. I think the one, well, it's actually within this block of chapters. It's ones in the later chapters against Okitsa Soji that I felt like, all right, this dude is too good. I really need to stock up on my healing items. I think that's where I found the difficulty spike that I expect from a Yakuza, where I'm like, okay, this is the moment in which now I need to really think about what I take with me into battle. It wasn't too difficult. Like I started to get a lot better with the swordsman and start to parry a little bit more, because this game, I think I said in the last episode that this game I feel like it does give you a little bit more to work with in terms of being able to counter someone with the swordsman style. So,
that seems like the one you're supposed to use for boss fights. The swordsman. Sure, yeah. It like makes a lot of sense in how it feels, and of course, narratively, that it would be more of a sword fight. But I never really vibed in the brawler Yakuzas with the resource management element and feeling like any dungeon is easy if you just make sure your inventory is full before you go in. Like it's there. I liked that you could find some throughout, some potions and whatnot, which I don't feel like has been in this. I don't think I've picked up any healing items mid dungeon.
There's a few couple like in story missions, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wish it was like balanced more around that.
What difficulty? What difficulty are you playing on?
I'm playing on hard because...
Do you think they limited that? Because I had a ton when I was like going through. There was like, do you think that it's limiting based on difficulty? Because yeah, when I was going through on easy, there was a bunch of healing items.
Maybe I found mostly crafting materials.
On normal. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the place where I talk about how I broke the game via chicken racing, because my gear is just off the charts. Now I have like the best sword, or at least, one of the best swords. I have very good armor. I have a good gun. And so for, I'm playing on normal, but with that and with the swordsman tree basically maxed out, so I have all of the damage upgrades, like there are heat actions I can do on bosses that just take a third of their health away. And then I have troops that will give me like 4 heat levels just when I push a button. And so like I have actually felt almost that the fights have been anticlimactic, and I felt like I kind of leveled myself out of some drama, because on both this one and the Soji fight, I won first try very easily, just because I'm so like souped up.
Damn, we got a gamer over here. We got a real gamer.
I mean, and it's purely
by holding Jacob back, we've made him too strong.
More like Jacob
what's
gamer.
Happened.
I think it is. Partially it's because of the chicken racing, and I can talk about my strategy, but also it's
if you
because...
could just like right out your chicken racing notes and just hand them to me, I would appreciate that.
Hey, there's a lot of sites looking for guides work. You can do that.
when we've hit our stopping points, I have just gone into the dungeons because I've wanted to grind, and so I have enough materials that now I can I can like make basically anything. But do y'all want to hear about chicken racing?
I'm
Absolutely.
ready to hear, yeah.
Let's go.
Okay, so chicken racing, as we talked about last episode, is the way that you get rich. But I thought, how? And it's
I feel like I'm listening to like some make money quick scam, and I'm about
this
to.
This
like,
is welcome
notes.
back to Planet Money. So the way that chicken racing works is that you have a number of different outcomes that you can bet on. And the most basic one is just saying, I think chicken 4 is going to come in first. But the more specific you get, the higher the outcomes get, until the most specific one you can do is what I think of as betting on like a full house, which is you say, not only do I know that chicken 4 is going to come in first, the order is going to be 4, 1, 3, 2, 5. You place every chicken. And the thing is, if you know what chicken is going to win the race, then you can place a maximum bet on every possible outcome of it, given that 4 wins, and you will still come out massively on top. So, like, if you decide that chicken 4 is going to win, you can say, 300 tickets on 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 400 tickets on 4, 2, 1, 3, 5, and just go down and bet on every single potentiality. And if you do that and you do everything, you can go from like 7,000 tickets to 40,000 tickets in one race. And then 40,000 tickets can buy like, I don't know, 60 platinum plates, and then you sell all those, and suddenly you have 300 Rio. So
Goddamn, yeah.
That's the strategy. But then you still have to know what chicken wins, which is still kind of hard. And so it takes one, save scumming. I did just save scum, and if my chicken lost, I would reload a save. But also, the chickens have all these almost like hieroglyphic looking things next to their names. And the ones that I've learned you want to bet on is the arrow pointing straight up or as up as it can, and then a number of the double circle signs. When there's just a circle within another circle, that means a chicken's going to be fast. And so you place all your bets on the double circle up arrow chickens. And now I effectively have infinite money.
Wow, the casino bosses are going to be on.
It's very easy. Yeah. I don't know what everyone's complaining about.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, it's good
It's like they give you so much, and then they're like, you have 60 seconds. I don't know why it's timed. Like, this isn't some kind of online thing. Why do I only have like 60 seconds to place my bets? Like, I feel like I have to read like I'm reading this chicken stats. I'm seeing how they performed in past races. I'm like judging based on their names. Like, why are you only giving me 60 seconds to literally like dig into the history of these chickens? Like, I can't make an informed decision in 60 seconds.
You ever been to the horse race track and actually bet on horses? It's kind of like that.
Because I'm a bad gambler is what I've learned from this game.
Yep.
I did really like the feeling of sometimes I would look at the lineup of chickens and just say like, I don't like any of them. And I would just leave and come back. And the idea of like, it felt very much like someone with an actual gambling problem of being I know none of these chickens are winners.
No winners here.
How could none of them win? But I'm with you. Prismo writes in, I'm one of the sickos who has all the Yakuza / Judgment platinums, and I'm grinding the plat for this game. The blacksmithing requirements are brutal even for an RGG game. It costs well over 5,000 Rio to craft everything, even with maxed out smithing level. And a lot of the mats for crafting requires grinding out the battle dungeons for hours. I'm currently sitting at 90% completion and going insane.
Oof.
Prismo. Take up chicken betting.
The other thing, but I don't have the materials still, so that's still brutal. The other very funny thing that results from the chicken betting thing is the maximum bond with the man at the chicken betting ring reveals that all he wants to do is, quote, let me find this. He wants to go to the brothels and, quote, get wrung out like dirty fundoshi. And that's his dream. And you're like, hey, you know what, man? You should do that. And he's like, I'm almost there. What chicken do I bet on? And then you tell him one of two chickens to bet on. And I don't know if he can lose, but in my game, he won. And then he got to go to the brothels and have a good old time.
Oh, I hope he had a great time.
That's really nice. And I think it was your gambling skill that did it.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping when I saw that it was chicken racing that I would get to like raise a chicken, like if we were doing like a pocket circuit racing.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Like I was like, so I raise my chicken, I train him, like we do like a training montage, like Rocky moment together up the stairs. Like that's what I thought it was gonna be. So I was a little disappointed, especially because like I have chickens on my farm. And I'm like, can't I just like enter one of my own chickens in the like I don't know.
Yeah, you've got that super deluxe coop. You should be able to. Oh, the other thing, and then I'll shut up about this. The other thing that chicken racing does, though, is it also breaks the valor economy or whatever what is like the karma point system virtue, because you just get so many points for like moving so much money around. Like you get virtue rewards for buying and selling things, and I'm buying and selling in such enormous quantities that they're like, I don't know, here's 10,000 virtue, like just go crazy.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel bad for like breaking the game economy because like at this period in history, Japan's economy is in the toilet. Once we leave the Tokugawa era and enter the Meiji era, the Ryo and Mon no longer exist. So, have fun while you have it. I just keep telling myself the economy's in the toilet anyways. Doesn't matter. It's just even more historically accurate.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, because in Yakuza 0, the way in which money flows in like that in-game economy is so ridiculous, and it kind of it's exaggerated, of course, but it kind of plays into the gaudiness and the flashiness of 80s Japan, where these dudes just had so much money to blow. And then you play like the more modern Yakuza games, or the games that come out or that take place in the more modern era, and like money is much harder to come by. So I feel like they're trying to say something with the way money flows in and out of these games.
And they definitely are. It's a bunch of rules that are made to be broken for sure. That's the Yakuza vibe. Yeah. And I think what I was excited getting the troop cards because I felt like, oh, now all these health problems I've been having, poor choice of words, video game, are you okay? Health bar management issues. It's like I could brain my way through this. That's what I wanted to do, was like, oh, I can just outthink these boss fights I'm struggling with by building myself this like powerful combo of abilities that'll heal me through it or whatever. And I just haven't been able to do that as much as I wanted to, and I hope I still can in the rest of the game here. But yeah, it's the boss fights. I feel like I put it on hard because I really like having the individual fights be a little longer, have a little more meat to them. But then when it gets to the boss fights, I'm truly at the point now where it's like, oh, a boss fight starts, I'll be on my phone while it happens twice, and then do the temporarily switch to easy difficulty thing. So there's... Wow.
I will say, you guys, gun mode, easy difficulty, I'm still going strong.
Damn. It's
all bosses gun, only gun. I don't think... There's that one time where you have to use your fists, like when they make me use my other thing, but gun's going good. It's going strong.
Do you do the gun thing as my fellow gun player who likes going through screen doors? Do you do the sprinting X attack where it's like a flying knee that blasts through the screen door, and then you do a follow-up shot on the first dude in the room?
Sad when I found out you could just like bullet your way through those screens, like you could shoot them away. I was just like, not really as fun as it would have been to slash through with a sword, but I'll take what I can get.
I really like the have you met the gun trainer, like the gun dojo?
Yeah.
Who's a white cowboy guy? He's like an American, and they give him all sorts of kind of like cowboyisms to say. I think it is so funny. Anytime there is like a white person in these games, it's hilarious. And there are like several that you run into, and it's always so funny.
I love that they I wish people would stop calling me a weeb and start calling me a Japanologist, which is what they all refer to themselves as. Like, there's that one guy who's like based on like Yakuza Zero Bacchus. He's like, yeah, no, I'm like a Japanologist. Like, I just love Japan. This country is so amazing. Like, I love everything about it. Like, I'm just gonna stay here. I'm gonna write a book all about Japan. That's how much I love Japan. And he's like, yeah, I'm a Japanologist. What happened to that? When did we stop calling people Japanologists?
I don't know if that was ever a thing, but good luck trying to start that.
It imagines a beautiful world for sure.
I also really like within the Cowboy Dojo, you eventually get to a like a test where you have to take down 30 people, but they all go down in a single gunshot, and you're just standing in the middle of a circle, and they're running at you from all sides, and you're just kind of spinning around and shooting, and it's like, it's not challenging at all, but it's so funny to just shoot like 30 guys and have them all like, boo!
Yeah, that was a treat. Speaking of treats, nailed it. Chapter 8.
Oh my god.
The Mad Dog Howls. This was an exciting one, I'm sure, for the Majima heads in the chat.
It was, when I saw the title of that chapter, I was like, oh, this is gonna be
You
good.
started howling?
Yup. Awooga.
I love how it just starts off like, once again, like, you forget that this is the most employed Kiryu's ever been, I believe, in a
Like
game
a real
so
job,
far.
like an actual
Besides, like,
real
when
job.
I guess like when he was a taxi driver, he was incredibly employed. But like,
Right.
you usually don't have people coming to you and saying like, you have to do XYZ for me, and like, we're in the same corporation. Like, he usually just kind of does things like because it's morally good. You know, rarely is it ever like, because it's my job. So yeah,
Or
it was
if it's
weird.
his passion, obviously.
It's just, yeah, his
Right, the
passion
hostess club.
project. When, you know, Okita's like, hey, can you meet me, in our warehouse / torture room? And I was like, okay, a little concerning, but I will hear you out on what you have to say to me. And wasn't it like, we're gonna take down this like big kimono salesman. He lives in this giant castle. He's got Shishi in there, you know, he's got loyalists. So we're gonna go just like, once again, we're gonna loiter around the outside of the castle in our Shinsengumi uniforms, and then whenever you show up, because God knows you're doing so many side quests, whenever you show up, we can get started with the raid.
Yeah, well, they didn't have ring cameras back then. They didn't have.
That's what people kept saying.
They
They're
got
like,
ADT.
they're just standing outside, like, I wonder what's gonna go down.
Oh, it's so funny because like Okiza just ropes you into this. Like, hey man, I got the tip on something. We're gonna come out real strong after this. You in? And then Ryoma's kind of like, dog, that sounds kind of, I don't know about that. And then Okiza's just like, nah, come on, man. You got my back, right? And it's like, all right, yeah, I guess I got your back. But
I don't know
obviously-
how much you lied to me yet.
but we're about to find out. And if there's something up, I'm Kiryu at my heart so I can fight through it. And this is like, obviously it's just an excuse to get to just isolate Ryoma. And this is kind of, it's one of those highs where, I mean, as Majima stands, as Sarah and I are, we live for these moments. The funny thing is, though, you get to the end of this kind of dungeon-ish thing, and it's the OG Dojima. It's the goofy, short, stumpy Dojima that we know from Zero and from, well, if you played Yakuza 1, you know what happens to him in that game. But it's so funny, like, oh, okay, this is where you show up, and you're cowarding again, just like you did.
I was
in
pleasantly
Zero.
surprised to see him. Like, he had his like gold glasses. He had his like, in the background you could see his tigers that were kind of a callback, his two tigers. So pleasantly surprised at the callbacks they've managed to like work into this game.
Yeah, and the fact that like the Mad Dog, like, oh, the Mad Dog, that's my
The
boy.
Majima
He's a
fights are
legend.
always really good. They're always a pain because he's
so
usually
good.
kind of a tough battle because
he's
he's just
such a
so
pain.
fast.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
fast.
the jump in Like a Dragon. Sorry, Sarah, he's in that game. The difficulty spike when you get to his fight in that game is so unbelievably high that when I saw him in this game, I was just like, oh no, I can't do it again.
Yeah,
It was. I mean, I was kitted out. This is the part also where I want to talk about. I have to apologize to this game, which I think I've been very complimentary towards. But last week I talked about the pre-rendered cutscenes looking very good. But I realized in this chapter that they are not pre-rendered, because this is the chapter, or this is the section where I started messing around with the costumes, because you can, maybe it's just if you have the like early copy, whatever that we got. But there are a ton of different costumes that you can put, not just Ryoma, but everyone in the Shinsengumi. You can change their outfits, and they maintain the outfits in the highest production value cutscenes. And I cannot tell you how cool and exciting it was to just kind of on a whim have put Soji in this like brilliant gold glittering cloak, and then having the fight happen in that, and seeing these like unbelievably choreographed cutscenes with him wearing this gold cloak and I'm wearing one with like falling leaves on it. And it's like, they're just doing it real time. The cutscenes just look that good.
Yeah.
God, that must have been beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Mess around with the costumes if you haven't. You can change it in your room. There's like your little thing.
I think you have to like pre-download the DLC off of Steam.
Oh, because I have tried to change it and I don't have any other options.
I mean, I'm playing the PlayStation version. Again, I don't know exactly which copy of the game I'm playing because they provided it. Thank you. But there's a guy dressed like a clown in the downstairs of the inn, and he gives you essentially DLC. And I think one of those DLC things is like have a bunch of costumes, and then you can put Ryoma in a chicken head. You can make his cloak look like a bunch of sushi. Like there are a bunch of really good designs, but what's the most fun is that you can change everyone else's costume as well.
That's cool. I can't imagine how that chicken head looks in the highest quality cutscene.
In a pre-rendered cutscene or in a high level cutscene. But man, this is definitely one of those highs, because anytime you have Majima versus Kiryu, or in this case a Ryoma versus Okitsusoji fight, it feels like RGG knows, again, it feels like they know what we're looking for. They know what we want. We want more Majima anytime we can get. So like the swordsmanship, just the like when they clash swords, and you see this in the earlier chapters last week we talked about, where they clash swords and they just stare each other down, and Majima Okitsusoji has that grin on his face, that look in his eyes, and man, it's I love this fight right here. It was really difficult, but anytime I face off with him, I know it's a hype moment, but also at the same time, this is like when I started to feel the not the exhaustion, but what is it? I started to see through the fact that everyone was trying to say like, "Oh, I'm the assassin. I'm the assassin."
They definitely didn't work when he tried.
This moment was like, I was like, all right, yeah. I know for a fact you're not.
I was like, oh, did you lose your eye between being an assassin and now? And I just like didn't know about it. Like, you're really not selling it here, but.
Yeah. And then, so the plot point, him being like, oh, he wanted to rile him up to bring out the best in him. Like, okay, well, at least that's like the most Majima-ass excuse that he could have done.
I wanted to fight the real Ryoma.
Yeah.
The like a little piece of this fight that again is like they know how hype it is usually when a boss fight starts, it does the little like title and zoom in while they're like standing there pointing their sword at you. But in this fight specifically, it's like Majima / Soji like leaps into the air and is like slashing down at you, and you're clashing swords, and he's like 7 feet high, and that's when the title comes in. That's like, Soji, you're gonna fight him, and it's just the music is going nutty. Great moment.
And on that moment from Mr. Donuts, they write, the fight with Okita was the first dynamic intro to a fight in the game that I've noticed so far. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention. Hope there's more in this game because they're brilliant and help me get excited for the upcoming fight and adding to the cinematic feel of the Yakuza games. Yeah, when it went seamlessly from the cutscene to the gameplay, like as it panned out, almost matching that camera movement. That was the first I noticed too, and definitely impressive.
Yeah, I think there I put the controller down because I thought that I was about to just like watch a cool sword fight, and then like the title card hit and I was like, oh god, no, this is the actual one. I had to like pick my controller back up really quick because I was like settling in for some good old fashioned cutscenes. But no, this one really snuck up, especially because the fight, if I remember correctly, was right off the heels of like a mini boss where you had to fight that kind of like
The
giant
10-foot tall guy?
Oh yeah.
Mochizuke, which I was gonna ask how that went for you guys, because with my gun, like the Mochizuke, and then like they were all armored opponents.
Yeah.
Even on easy, I was like struggling because it was a very close quarters fight, and I feel like you'd probably like go through your healing items, and then they throw you into the Okita fight.
Yeah,
Which like I was just like, that's kind of like, this is. It felt tough. It felt like a tough fight.
Brutal,
Yeah, I think I had the acid rounds are the ones that burn through armor.
That's what I'd been using.
Yeah, I had a few on them, and I hadn't used them at all. So I was like, okay, this is the moment. Well, I'm not going to hold on to. I've learned over the years in RPGs to just use the items that you got if there's a right moment. So I think I'd like burn all my acid rounds, because those dudes are tough, especially the ones that are 20 feet tall. Like those dudes got range, and they will do a lot of damage. And I'm like, listen, I'm not about that life. So
Philly Eatsteak wrote in about that tall guy asking, why was that one samurai so ludicrously tall? Is there any precedent for that? I've played a few Yakuza games. I've never seen that before.
Well, there's it even even weirder in the like dungeons that you can do from the Shinsengumi base. Like the boss of the two bosses that I fought thus far are even bigger and truly look like monsters. Like they have like big horns, and they're glowing, and they have like elemental attacks, and it does feel like it's like, oh, I'm playing Neo now. Like I'm just fighting like a supernatural demon.
yeah, it's like, oh, you seen Mr. Shakedown? Well, here's Mr. Shakedown times 2. And they're just like hulking tanks. I'm like, all right, fine. I don't think you can use heat moves on them, because they
which is very frustrating. Yeah, because I wanted to just let me burn my heat.
But for my fellow gun nuts, there's the right trigger move. That's kind of the dead eye from Red Dead, where you hit a bunch of different targets, which has been doesn't always work for me on multiple targets.
No, I can't figure it out.
I heard it was like a frame rate issue or something on PC. But for some
sometimes
reason,
it just doesn't go off.
Yeah, it was working with these tall guys, though. That was the only thing I could use my heat on. And I could lock onto like their knees and their chest and their head. And it was like 8 points of hitting. That was the most useful item spin. The other thing about this compound raid that Marty writes in about, yes.
Is it the women in cages?
No, even better than that.
I'm shocked.
Yes, even Yakuza games can have turret sequences.
Yeah. I was surprised by this one. I'm like, all right.
It's so I love when a game set in like the 1800s finds a way to have a turret sequence. You know, it's like in Red Dead Redemption, they're like, this is the first Gatling gun that's ever been invented. Use it to kill 300 guys.
Yeah, I loved how short and simple this was, of like pushing towards it and then taking it to just kill, but just zero challenge. There's just 8 people in a straight line. I hope it never comes back, and that's just the one perfect turret sequence.
I thought that it was like a callback to like Sengoku specific. I thought that he had like a turret in his game, but I don't know. It might come back. I don't expect it will though.
Interesting. The turret guy. Other thoughts on the Okita fight and the fallout afterwards?
That was, I guess what we missed is there's that part at the end of the previous chapter where Okita overhears that Hajime Saito is really...
Right.
So he knows. He also knows. And at the end, he kind of admits it, and he's like, I can't believe you didn't tell me that your real name. But he still calls him, he's been calling him Hajime-chan. But he still calls him Ryoma-chan, so I like to think that, he was just upset that, bro, you didn't tell me that you were going under a fake name, kind of rude of you, I thought we were close.
Yeah, I mean, he is just like, I'm just in this organization because I like killing people, I'm not really, that ethically connected to the mission. This is not directly about that mission, but it is related to Soji. There's a very funny side mission where you are in what's the bad part of town
Mukuro guy.
Yeah, you're there and you kind of get mugged, and there are a bunch of guys that Ryoma could easily beat in a fight, but for some reason the cutscene is implying they're scary, he couldn't beat them in a fight. And then you have a friend who stands behind a corner and does a Soji impression. and he's like, hey, everyone, I'm coming through. You're not going to like fighting the mad dog. And they're all like, uh-oh, we better run. And then he goes away, and Ryoma never finds out that it was like his friend doing an impression. And so later there's a scene where you're back at like the compound, and he's like, hey, why didn't you ever show up when I was about to be mugged by that guy? And so she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just like one of those good little stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
But on the list of Shinsengumi who know Hajime Saito is really Roma, we have Okita Soji, not the Kashiwagi, but not Kashiwagi. Inoue.
Inoue, yeah.
And then you have Kondo. So that's like 3 people confirmed, but we have like suspicions for others. And then a bunch of, how many people have died?
Right. Well, there's the kind of like intermediary leader guy knows that your motives are not what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, he's like, you think I didn't know that there was some samurai going around trying to find Tennen Rishin users? So it's like he knows you're not legit, but he's kind of fine with it.
He also knows you're a loyalist because they know who Ryoma Sakamoto is. Like, they've heard that he's a Tosa loyalist, right? He literally he's like, I know that you're the brother. I know that, but he's like, but you're such a team player, and clearly you're just here for this one specific thing.
I feel like the whole Ryoma is a loyalist plotline is kind of the weakest part, because like literally all that happened is he showed up the same day his, I can't remember if it was dad or his brother, but one of them was like, hey, you're head of the party now. And then later that day, he exiled himself. And so it's like they gave him this position that he never wanted or did anything with. And yet people are kind of treating it like it's part of his character motivation.
He was really into it for like the one day he was on the team, though.
Right.
He was like, yeah, this sounds really cool, you guys.
It's so funny because like that mirrors kind of Kiryu's journey through the Tojo clan, where he was the chairman for like half a day and said, all right, I'm not about this life. Peace out, y'all.
But they still call him the chairman?
Yeah, the 4th chairman, as he's known, because he had that job for half a day. His portrait's up on in the hallways of the Tojo HQ, but yeah, it's kind of a similar parallel where like people just know his name, but it's, I don't know. It takes a little bit of self-convincing to be like, okay, yes, their name Ryoma Sakamoto has this gravitas that everyone kind of like knows. Oh, that's the dude, I guess. And in the context of like when I think about like actual history, it's like, okay, yeah, Ryoma Sakamoto was a very well-known name, so maybe I just kind of accept that piece of that's not said in the story. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Are we ready to get into our final chapter? I was really noting
the best chapter.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to say
this whole section. I feel like every chapter felt climactic in its own way, and everyone was like, "That would have been a great one to end on." But we needed to get to this one. This was the most important
Absolutely.
one to factor in. Someone give me the plot setup here before we get to what exactly makes it so magical.
Well, it kicks off with you hearing that your brother / not brother, Hanpeita, is dead in Tosa.
Which we all believe, because we read it in the letter.
But he went there and he was basically killed by the new daimyo of Tosa. So, like, they kind of set it up in the beginning where they're like, oh, like, this now that your dad's dead, like, this bigwig's going down to, like, replace him, and he's gonna stamp out all the loyalists, and, like, he's, like, he's from Edo, like, he's, like, pro the shogunate, he's gonna go down there, he's gonna, like, kill everybody, and you're like, his reaction was like, okay. And then you hear that he did end up like killing Hanpeita, your brother. And his first reaction was like, I should go down there, which is a bad. And everyone's like, that's a bad idea. But this time, instead of saying, I'm going to do it anyways, he said, okay, you're right. It is a bad idea. Because he committed Dappan, which they don't really explain what that is. But they reference it a lot. And Dappan is when a samurai leaves the sort of like clan, the area of his daimyo, the district of his daimyo, without permission. It's basically like desertation. Like he deserted the army. And now if they find him, it's basically instant death for doing that. So it's like he has, by leaving Tosa without permission and being a Tosa samurai, he has committed a great crime. So he can't go back for several reasons, that being one of them.
Right. And he's solving it by drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Well, it really falls into this depressive state, which kind of drives the entire chapter, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I like, is that this is the first time in the game where, like, his stoicness just, like, fails him. You know, that through every other event, he has been level-headed, and there have been other people who've been freaking out, and every side story is someone else freaking out, and he's like, hey, don't worry, I have this perfectly calm, rational, life advice for you. And to see that just, like, crumble, that he just kind of loses it in this chapter, and it has some very fun things that happen, and also some very sad things, but just, like, them letting his character kind of completely contradict everything that we've seen his character do so far. Rocked. It was great.
I don't know how many times I've seen Kiryu cry, or if I've even seen him cry previously, because like when Nishiki got blown up on the top of Millennium Tower, I don't think it hit him this hard. Like I don't think I've ever seen him so torn up over a death. Like he's pretty stoic about it, and he gets bummed out, but like this is the first time that like I've seen like the close up of like the tear running down his cheek. Like it was very, and he's just like drinking on like, I don't know if I've seen him so emotional before.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely hits the bar pretty hard when things like this happen. But that dude put away some sake in this chapter. Like, I was like, ooh, that actually looks kind of good. I think I'm gonna get myself a bottle of that and see if I could fix me up just like him. But
can we talk about that? This is the first game that has a good liquid pouring animation. That when he pours sake from a bottle into a glass, I was like, that doesn't look bizarre. Which in every other video game it does.
Yeah, it's the extension of that bread tech from Like a Dragon.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
RGG knows what they're doing.
Wow. They know where to put the money, where it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always love in a game where it has like a drunk mechanic that it can take advantage of in a story sequence like this, where you have the little icon that you would if you had just gotten drunk normally, and the controls are a little different like they would be if you got drunk in gameplay. I really love when it can feel like, whenever he gets drunk, he feels like this.
Yeah.
Cool way to tie it in. But Starkiller wants to talk about Saigo adopting the dog and then coming with you while drinking with the boys.
All right. Yes, finally, we're here.
Yeah, especially when the camera cuts to the dog's reaction, Starkiller says. I adored that scene, that moment of like when Saigo saves the dog and the dog gives him a little nibble on the arm and everybody's like, oh, is he about to wail on this dog?
Yeah.
That big pause before he goes coochie coochie coo.
Oh,
wonderful moment.
Also, it's so good that the setup of the scene is there's some like asshole kids throwing rocks at a dog, and then
there's just a lot of like dog abuse in this. Just like because one of the dog side quests is just a dog getting like people keep beating it up, and you keep giving it medicine, and then they come back and they beat him up again. But this is also the most dogs we've had in a Yakuza game.
Yes. But so Saigo, catches the rock, throws it back at the kids, picks up the dog. But I just love him saying, I've had a really bad day. I'm in a bad mood. I had a bad day. And then he picks up the dog. And it's like, do we find out what in particular has gone wrong in his day, or it's just like he's in a crabby mood and Ryoma's crabby, and they're just like men who aren't able to talk about their emotions, and so they go and fight people and drink instead.
Yep, that's the Yakuza way. And this cutscene kind of it mirrors the one in Yakuza 1 where Kiryu first, I think this is the first time that him and Haruka actually connect and meet. So in Yakuza 1, the same thing where there's I think kids are like bullying a dog, and Haruka's kind of, if I'm recalling correctly, she's like, stop, and they're not stopping, and then Kiryu steps in, and I think he like catches the dog, says, beat it, and saves the dog, and Kiryu and Haruka and this dog kind of follow him around in that chapter of Yakuza 1. So it's I don't know if it was an intentional callback, but it's really cool to see that again, but this time being Ryuji Goda, or well, in this case, Saigo, who at this point, and I talked about this a little bit in the last episode when we talked about the bathrooms or the bathhouse scene, where there are a few moments we actually get to see this character. Kind of, we don't really see this side of the character. We didn't really get that in Kiwami 2 or in the original Yakuza 2. So to see him kind of the softer side of him being, oh, it's adorable, this big angry man who could beat anyone up is, I love that trope. It's just like, give me that trope all the time. Just like this big angry dude who could beat anyone up. He becomes a big softie. This is the moment I was like, oh, finally, like this character gets a nice moment here. Like we didn't get enough of him because he was only in Yakuza 2, but at least in Ishin, we got to see Ryuji Goda, aka Saigo, have this moment. And when him and Akiyama, or Kogoro, like Saigo Kogoro, two sides of the same coin, just butt heads in this moment, just really intense fight. And Ryoma just cuts the tension straight up. He's like too damn drunk to realize what is happening, but he literally steps in between them and says, y'all need to stop and we need to continue drinking. Let's go out. It's this tonight's for the boys. Like the way
I love it. Like in the last episode, I was like telling about how I was so disappointed that I never got to get like brewskis with my bros. Like they keep like setting you up, and then when this happened, because isn't like they're gonna fight each other, because basically Kogoro is from the Satsuma clan and Saigo is from the Choshu clan, and they just hate each other for whatever reason, and that's why they have this animosity between them. So like they're gonna use their swords. Ryoma steps in, he takes the swords, like he knocks them out of both their hands, chucks them, and he's like, "You're gonna do it with your fists, and I'm gonna join in." And then you proceed to kick both their asses.
And they both in this they seem to say non-verbally, well, I guess we gotta team up on Ryoma.
Yeah, they both fight each other.
They like only a 1v2. Actually, yeah, absolutely.
It's so good. And this is another way in which Ryoma being able to kick anyone's ass can get his way. Because these two dudes who are at each other's throats, who are almost on the verge of starting a war between themselves, the only reason why that stops is because Ryoma can kick their ass himself. So yeah, just the way, and like after the fight where he like grabs him and says, you know what we're doing tonight? We're going out drinking. And this is a side of Kiryu / Ryoma that we actually, I don't know if we've ever seen before. Because
I've never seen him sort of like cajoling with friends, or just like goofing around with friends.
Yeah, the most he'll have is like a deep conversation with someone at a bar.
With like a furrowed brow over some whiskey.
Yeah.
It's so interesting as his reaction to the trauma that he's going through is like, he doesn't want to see more violence here between these two people, and B wants to,
and they're both his friends.
Yeah,
like,
right.
He considers both of them like, you know, friends. They both of them have helped him out. So
yeah.
And can I just say, when I was like, when we leave that cutscene and he's like, let's go to a bar, I was like, the dog better come with. I was like, the dog better come with us. And then you start walking and the dog follows you. I was screaming. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I needed. Like, I can't think of any of the Yakuza games I've played where kind of like the main characters have gotten to hang out. Like, because, you know, Akiyama and Kiryu, they're like main characters, but they rarely ever sort of play in the same sandbox, I guess I would say. So it was really nice to see, like, it's like, that's what I like this guy. I like this guy, and now we're all gonna hang out and be besties?
Right.
This
and
is
it's
great.
Like, on the walks to the bar, you would run into, you know, the normal kind of like muggers or whoever, and it would let you take out your sword. Like, you could use all your fighting styles, but just like by choice, I was like, it's a bare knuckle kind of night. And so then like me and Kogoro and Saigo would all be in these fights against these muggers, just like bare knuckle boxing them all. And it was just like very silly, very light. I don't know what would happen if you tried to do like side stories, if they're like available during this chapter or whatever, but just kind of like traipsing around town with the boys was such a pleasant surprise. And that because they stay with you, I was just like, well, obviously I'm going to play all of these story missions in a row. Whereas for all the other chapters, I would kind of do a story mission and then do some side stuff and then come back to a story mission.
Yeah, it's one of the rare moments, at least in the Kiryu saga of Yakuza, where you get to be with somebody. So, and this is one of the reasons why I loved Like a Dragon in such a different way than the rest of the Yakuza games, is because it has that party dynamic, that social aspect to it, just because like Ichiban is such a charismatic person who will bring people together. So the fact that we had Ryoma/Kiryu be like that for at least a moment was, I wanted to savor this. Like, oh, this is special. This is something that only Ishin does, that Ishin can offer in this moment. So I mean, it's only a short while that you can do this, but the interactions were great. The fact that I can get into fights and they're going to get my back too, like this was.
I took a photo. I took a group photo with all of us.
I took so many. I went to photo mode and I went ham on that thing. Oh my god! And all the different poses you can do, and like you can put in like the different kanji characters and stuff. I had so many photos where I'm just like, where Kiryu or Ryoma's like mad or pointing, or he's got his sword out, he's got his gun out. It was so adorable. I love this. This is what we all come to Yakuza for.
Saigo and Kogoro are like chatting, and Kogoro's like, I didn't know that you like dogs so much. And like you hear Saigo being like, oh, like they're so loyal. Like I like to go hunting with them. And I was just like standing there like, are you guys bonding? Are you guys becoming friends? Literally, that's what I was chanting. I was like third wheeling it. I was like, are you guys friends now? Are we all friends?
I could be the wingman for y'all.
Yeah.
We can solve all our conflict and all our problems if y'all just kiss and make up.
And I just like how Odio was like, you can't solve your sadness through drinking. And I feel like this counteracted her point entirely. Because I feel like because we were so drunk, we did in fact solve a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the franchise's point of view seems to be that drinking is cool and fun.
Though I do think, I mean, I will say that I think it draws a distinction between drinking with people and not. Yeah. At least it's like it's obviously very. It's like when you see him alone in his inn just drinking, it's like there's nothing good about that, and so it is kind of going out on the town. But it is still like, well, yeah, alcohol helps, obviously. Yeah, and the fact that that Saigo and Kogoro are the ones telling him to stop, they're like, yo. We're gonna hit this bar and we're done for the night. And then by the time they're done drinking there, Ryoma's the one who's like, I feel like we could hit another one. And I was like,
we all good with like that one friend who insists on going somewhere else, even though nobody wants to, and you get dragged out to like another place at God knows what hour, and then they end up like passing out first.
And do you remember how hard they kicked your ass? So you can't say no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, apart from the night out drinking, the weird kind of it's not weird to be asexual, but Ryoma's kind of like undefined if he has any sexual feelings at all, but like when he's drinking and Oreo kind of comes in and he's like, I need you to just like sleep with me. Like not you just like I just need like another person here. I
hated that so much. She was like sitting there and I'm like, ma'am, he's drunk, not dying. Like he's gonna wake up. Why are you just creepily like? I was like, you are taking advantage of him in a very vulnerable state to sort of like force yourself upon him. And I'm like, he's drunk. He's not sick and dying. Get out of here.
It's like if that was her goal was to like put her head on his chest while he cries, which I think is pretty harmless.
It definitely felt like the developers were using her as like a woman for him to really tell how he feels, because he was like, then he reveals that he's really upset because the last words they had were a fight. Like that's what he's upset that his brother died, but he's also upset with how they left things. So that's where that gets kind of revealed. But also during the drinking, they slipped in like I think 2 major plot points when like in the middle of like, you know, the good bros and brewskis time, where we start to see Saigo and Kogoro sort of like discuss their, you know, like they're supposed to just be drinking and having fun, but they start to discuss their clans and they start to kind of like get into the reasons that they don't like each other. Because they have a common enemy, and that common enemy is the Bakufu and the Shogunate. So, like, they have a common enemy, and you don't really know why they don't like each other. And then they also slip in where I believe Saigo finds out that Hajime Saito is really Ryoma Sakamoto. And there's that moment, too. So it's like, now Saigo knows that he was actually talking to a fake, because this is one of these Sakamoto Ryomas is a fake. And he doesn't know which one's real. And also now they've sort of like opened up a discussion between the Choshu and the Satsuma clan. And they're going to be like, but like, you know, Yoma was just joshing around with the bros and he accidentally brought together the 2 strongest forces to oppose the Shogunate. Rats! Can't believe this happened.
I do like that the like narrative direction is like there's some important stuff happening, but like you don't know what it is because you're drunk as hell. You know, where it's like the next morning he's like, I don't remember anything that happened. So I'm sure the game will
literally passed out.
Yeah.
Literally passed out, and the 2 strongest anti-Shogunate forces were suddenly in positive in talks. And he just slept through it along with the dog, who was also sleeping next to you, which I thought was adorable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the very last little tidbit that we got was the Yamazaki, the spy master of the Shinsengumi, passing off that note to Oreo, which to me she seemed like ready for.
Oreo is sus. I don't know her deal, but I find her very sus.
She didn't seem surprised at all to receive that note.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So
yeah.
I'm curious where that goes.
So, yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, there are layers to this, and I don't like where this is going. And
Miss my dad died to the Shinsengumi killed my dad.
yeah,
Wow, heard that 1,000 times. If we're talking about weird interactions with women, can we go to the Another Life section?
Did you finally get to those cutscenes?
If you found
Oh,
any
that I
I
talked
got
about
this
in the
down.
last episode? I didn't want to spoil anything.
yeah.
I only got the really normal ear cleaning one. So you got some weird ones?
There is a
Leo.
if you go and you take a bath, there's a
Yeah, I
little
did get
special
the bath one as
scene.
well. Oh God, yeah. So I
don't know
got
where
the bath
I
one.
unlocked the 3rd one, but I don't know where it is.
I got the bath one first, which is you're taking a bath in. Honestly, I've never taken a bath in like a small, deep wooden tub.
It's really
it looks
nice.
great.
I did that in Japan in an onsen. I like sat in like a bronze, like giant flower pot.
Nice.
Incredible.
Oh,
And
wow,
every
okay.
time I see it, he's like, "This is the best thing ever," and I'm like, "It looks like it." But Haruka comes in and she's like, "Hey, would you like me to scrub your back?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I love doing this to my dad. I would always scrub his back." And you're like, "Cool, thank you." And that's how that scene is. She scrubs your back, and then later, she cleaned my ears.
Yep.
She was really going in on that ear because you had like a whole conversation and she was just digging.
I mean, and the
entire
fact that he
time.
was reacting, Ryoma was like, "Ooh!" Like I was like, "What is she doing?"
She's digging in there. He didn't even switch sides.
I mean,
He
I don't
only
think
really
they
got
had.
one ear.
I don't think they had Q-tips.
She went through the other end.
Yeah, that's so weird because, like we said last time, like if you don't know that Haruka is kind of Kiryu's adopted daughter in the mainline series, and like she's somewhat pseudo related to him through step bonds, like not directly, but like sort of related to him. This kind of comes out of left field.
Yeah, it can give you the wrong idea if you're not familiar with who those characters are. I will say that at least, or maybe this says more about me or other people, but I feel like that is sort of a like an immigrant family type thing. So I know that like in other cultures that the children do kind of serve the parents in other in ways like that, where like how do I put this? Okay. Like in immigrant families, like the dads will ask the kids like, "Oh, I need you to put lotion on my back." So just like, I'm gonna watch TV, you put lotion on my back. Things like that happen, or just like are expected of families like in different cultures, different traditions. So for me, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, let me pause for a second. Let me put myself in the mind frame of other cultures, such as, you know, and like, I don't know, it's not an explicit thing in the Philippines, but in other like other cultures that are adjacent, the Filipino adjacent, I could say. Like I'm aware of these things being asked of. Like, I don't think like anyone in Middle America, like any white family, is gonna have things like this. So
well, I mean, look,
like,
they do all sorts of other weird shit. You know, it's not that they don't do weird things.
Right.
I mean, all of my concerns, of course, were immediately put aside when the trophy popped up that said platonic bliss.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, good, it's platonic.
They really had to say like, okay, just to make sure.
They put it in bold. They highlighted it.
Yeah. The first trophy I'd seen underlined.
That's
like,
good.
by the way,
you don't want to unlock the next one, Jacob. Just stop there. You don't want to find the next trophy. Poor and Curly writes, the world's RGG craft are so detailed and immersive. I'm glad they give us the tools to be properly immersed. Holding RB to walk and clicking both sticks to go first person really allow you to soak in all the details of all the various food items in each shop. I liked the first person view for that Another Life stuff. I was like working this week and I had my laptop writing and this game up on the big screen. I just had first person looking at my Another Life farm and just watching those crops grow over time is so satisfying. It going from like this.
Do they actually get bigger? Like they just kind of slowly...
They kind of pop into being done, but they get done at different times. So it's like the garden gradually fills that way. That has continued to be a really quaint, good experience.
Yeah.
And now I
go
full-size
into first
farm
person to look at like the art too, especially on all the walls. It's just so well done, because, you know, we all know Kamurocho, and I always assumed, like, oh, the reason this is so well done is because they reuse it across all the games. But it's nice to see that they kept that level of detail, even in a game that they're not going to reuse this. I mean, there's maybe, like, one other game that might be set in here, the previous one, but probably not. But it's, like, it's cool to see they still have that level of detail.
I want time traveling. For you to go back
You want to go from here, you want to go back to Kamurocho?
Yes, exactly. What other side stuff did we get into this time? I got more into the fishing, and I grew to appreciate that. It's so simple, but it's like, it's nice that the fishing is relaxing. It never made sense to me that in Stardew Valley, the fishing is like the most intense thing you do.
Yeah, it's I spent a lot of time fishing because I just like fishing minigames, but also as I got more into the cooking stuff, this is the moment when I really started to understand the cooking minigame, and just being able to put together all the recipes was very satisfying for me, just because I like the cute music. I like the little mini games. So when I go out and fishing, I actually find the fish. I just got roped into that, because also I spent all my virtue on upgrading my fishing rod. Like, I got the best fishing rod. I was like, all right, well, I spent how much virtue, so I'm going to get the most of this. And I caught a damn shark. Once I caught a shark, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm done.
No, I did that. I was like, I'm retiring on top. I caught a great white shark.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I'm good. It's just satisfying to see the little shadow of, here's this long ass shadow that spans the whole ocean that I'm looking at. I'm going to try and catch that, and just timing the thing and seeing the animation, the little cutscene where Ryoma pulls the fish out, and like, boom, you got the rainbow trout, you got the big long eel, you got the shark. Like, very satisfying little things like that. I got into the fishing minigame pretty heavy.
Nice.
I had lots of conversations with interesting people. There was one with did any of y'all do the side quest with Dark Abisu?
Yeah.
Who was this kind of like con man pretending to be a god,
right?
That was like, hey, give me a bunch of money and then I'll do good things for you. a relatively uneventful thing. You just eventually found the guy and like threatened to beat him up, and he said that he'd stop. But it's notable because in the last cutscene, behind Ryoma's back, you see a woman talking to actual Abisu, who's like the same model of character, but like glowing and has like a rainbow halo. And it's just very funny for the game to be like, oh, there's a god. Like a god is just behind him and he hasn't turned around. I also, there is the lady who needs someone to talk to because she talks so much and everyone is tired of her talking so much. And she just gives you these like paragraphs of dialogue, and then at the end she quizzes you on the things that she said to see if you were actually listening. And eventually,
have you guys done the Globe sub-story yet?
Yeah.
I like which one?
The one where you kind of like go to the school and there's they got a globe for the first time ever. I think that is still my favorite sub story.
Yeah,
because they give you this globe from Tokugawa, Japan, and they're like, okay, Ryoma is sort of acting as sort of like a assistant teacher because the teacher isn't so confident that he understands the globe because it's this like newfangled technology. And Japan's been isolationist for like 200 years, so he's like, I've never really had to care about the rest of the world. And you have to answer questions from the little know-it-all child. And he makes you point out countries on the globe. And like, I was getting kind of nervous that he was going to throw me a curveball. And then they show you the globe. And it's like wholly inaccurate. Like there's just blobs places. You're like, I think that's the UK, this blob up here. And this, like, I think this is Japan. So the blob next to it must be China. I don't know. I really liked that sub story a lot.
Yeah, me too. Like the stuck-up kid who's like, well, actually, and the teacher just being like, oh, damn, I'm kind of an imposter. Ryoma, can you help me out here, buddy? I was like,
yeah.
You're like,
and then of course the lesson at the end is like, it's okay to say that you don't know. We respect that you're teaching us. You know, again, it's like it has to have the lesson of every sub story is just be yourself, and that's good.
Yeah, and there was that kid's like threatening to shut the school down, like his dad's gonna shut the school down if you don't get the answers right. And and then at the end he's like, the kids these days are scared. They don't know who to trust.
That's right. There were some other very good translation bits that I wrote down. Another mission with Miss Tatsu, the bounty hunter lady. She said, quote, sucks to suck. Which was just like, great. I'm so glad she said that. There was the lady, I think her name is like Sexy Madam, who's wants the vegetables. You give her the vegetables. The thing that I wrote down is she said the carrot had, and I'm sorry, decent girth. She like used that phrasing, which was just like, Jesus. I don't know what happens at the end of her plotline yet, because I just keep giving her vegetables and she keeps running away with them.
On the translation, Aaron T writes in, when asked in an interview about an English dub for Ishin, which we talked about last time, the game's producer, Masayoshi Yokoyama, said the dialect featured in the game's historical setting would be too difficult for English voice actors to translate and record. Here's the quote. For the Ishin remake, we're using subtitles. We're not dubbing voiceovers. We're translating the game into English, but the specialized vocabulary and the way people talked during the Bakumatsu era would make the lines incredibly long, so it just wouldn't work. So this time we're doing subtitles. So
I think what he actually means is we just didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
I think
that worked for you guys better than it worked for me.
Genuinely, I think that just means they didn't have the budget to do a fully voiced game, and they also didn't want to have to go through like the pains of trying to have an English speaker speak. But like,
totally fair.
Yeah.
I am sad that I'm missing out on like the dialect. You know, I think the translation is great, but I do think this would be cool to speak Japanese and hear words spoken and be like, oh, that is not used to how this word sounds or how the sentence structure would be formed or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good side story, I believe, which is like the ugly Ikesugi, which is like the ugly samurai, and the like, it's like ugly samurai versus hot samurai, like who's going to win a woman's affections. And he speaks in sort of like an old Shakespearean way, because there's this very specific way that samurai would speak very specific samurai dialect and like words that only samurai would use. So I thought that one was really well translated, that clearly he was using like very florally, like Shakespearean words. But yeah, I think that if I heard someone speak it in English and it was coming out of a samurai's mouth, it wouldn't hit the same than just reading it. But they do, like the Pops thing, the Toast of Pops thing is still throwing me. It is cool to hear like Kyoto has a very specific dialect during this time period, and still to this day, they have a very specific dialect. So it is nice to hear it in the background as well.
Yeah. Also, I just think it's one of those things where, like diminishing returns. Like if we're gonna put all this effort into voicing these characters, because they also do have a very vast cast. Like they will have to get a lot of voice actors. It's not just Kiryu and Majima, Saijima's voice actors. Like these are characters from the span of the entire franchise that they have to. Who either never had English voice actors or, well, yeah, there's a lot of them who just never had English voice actors. So it's like another layer of logistics that I'm pretty sure like they don't necessarily want to say in an interview. Like, all right, well, let me sit you down. Let me tell you about how game development works. Because at the end of the day, it is like a remake, remaster. So it's not like they're trying to it's not like this is a flagship entry for the franchise that is going to kind of be indicative of the future and carry the franchise moving forward. It's more like a treat for the fans. And I do feel like I'm not trying to say like, oh, the real fans play in Japanese. That's not what I'm trying to say. But like the original intent is kind of more or less intact when you play in Japanese. And I think the thing about the translation and localization is like they still have fun with it, because like you say, like the whole thing like sucks to suck kind of thing, and all the modernisms that they use to really grab our attention and make these really funny moments just don't. I've like it makes sense when you read it in text, and you can just like get a vibe for how they're trying to speak to you rather than the actual way they are trying to speak. Or the actual way that they speak during the times. Like there's a lot that would just get lost in translation if you introduced English voice acting. So I get it in a way. Like some people like obviously prefer to play in English, and I totally understand. I love that they're doing that with the other games moving forward. But in this case, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, I totally understand why.
Yeah, fair enough for sure. Any last thoughts on this section? Anything else we'll have in the big final chunk? We'll be doing every sub-story we haven't talked about, and it's going to be a massive final episode. But anything else specific to chapters 5 through 9?
I completed the Sword Dojo plotline, which is interesting. Where it has the sensei who's like not motivating the students, or there's this guy who's set to take over who doesn't seem like he's confident enough to do it or something, and eventually they're like, Ryoma, would you mind taking over? And he's like, sure, I'll do it, but I'm just gonna sell it and fire all the students there or whatever. And they're like, how could you? And then, ultimately he causes the student to like have self-confidence and peek and take over, and it's fun. That's less exciting than one of the last skills that you get in the sword tree, which is running towards 3 people. Have any of you unlocked this one?
No.
I don't think so, no.
It's so good. It's both useful and cool looking, where it's like a heat action that you can trigger when you are running towards a group of 3, where you slash a guy up in the air, jump on him, and then use him as a platform, like in the air, to attack another 2. And so it does like 1,000 damage to 3 different people. So it's both very useful, but it also just looks so sick.
God damn.
That's hard to even picture.
Yeah.
That's, hey, worth unlocking.
Sounds like some Bayonetta type, platinum action type stuff out there. Oh, but yeah, this group of chapters is so good. I think it gave us a lot of good personal moments to get you invested in the actual people who embody the story. So once we do move forward, once we start messing around with the bigger picture items, like the factions, like the political stakes, it's a very good setup. These group of chapters have some of the highest highs. Like chapter 8, fighting Okitsusoji / Majima, one of the top moments. Just getting drunk with Kogoro and Saigo, one of the top moments. So again, like I said at the front of the show, like this was when it really grabbed me, and I hope like other people playing along feel the same way, because this is what Yakuza does better than most other franchises. They get you with these moments, but it's a really good like turning point, because like now that Ryoma is kind of like, oh man, my brother died. What am I gonna do now? What even motivates me? It's such a good setup for what comes after.
Yeah, and when we convene next, no more unanswered questions. It'll all be on the table. That's March 28th.
Knowing Yakuza, there will be a few unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sure. March 28th, we're doing that recording for all the rest of the game, everything in it, the big final chunk. It's a much longer break this time to make sure everybody has time to make their way through it and get caught up. So Tuesday, March 28th, we'll be recording that at 7 p.m. Central on twitch.tv/MinnMax show. Until then, plug time. Michael Hyam, kick it off.
Ooh, you can find me and all of my stuff at Michael P. Hyam on Twitter. That is my name. And yeah, I've been out here doing things. I got some things lined up with IGN. I got some things lined up for GameSpot. Still doing some work for Polygon. Check out my Final Fantasy 16 coverage on Ars Technica. Also on Kinda Funny Games Cast, talking about that. You can check that out from last week. Final Fantasy 16. Listen, that's a video game. But yeah, you can check out all my coverage. I've been on like a million podcasts talking about it. So yeah, keep up with me there.
And if you think you don't have to check out the coverage because you just learned that it is a video game, there's more to it than that. You'll learn even more from listening.
Certainly more. So yeah, and on here on MinnMax talking about Yakuza.
That's right. Jacob?
This Friday, I will have a new video out. It's good. It's fun. You'll laugh watching it. Also listen to the Something Rotten podcast, where Blake Hester and I talk about the grimiest, most nihilistic games this week, Wednesday, so you'll be able to listen to it now. We're starting The Darkness, that 2-game franchise, which is really interesting for a game that has basically vanished off the face of the earth.
I loved that game at the time. Blake Hester, your co-host, did make an appearance in our Twitch chat earlier to say that the little kid from the Globe sub-story had, quote, big young Sheldon vibes.
Yeah. He didn't lie.
All right, Blake. I'm going to start questioning what Blake's been watching.
He says everything has young Sheldon vibes. Yeah, that's classic. That's just one cultural reference. Sarah, what you got going on?
You can find me on my Twitch channel at SarahPods, where we will be finishing up Ishin.
This very game
that we're talking about.
Wow. That's exciting. And I'm Leo. I'm Leo Vader. You know me. YouTube. You find me on YouTube. I'm Leo Vader there as well, because it's my name. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm super excited to finish this game off. I haven't done a ton of deepest dives. I did a Game Club, a Game Informer for Spider-Man that I remember, like, I would not have finished this game if not for my work obligations to finish it. And this is so far from that. It's truly a thrill. I never can be sure. But this is a joy. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, remember, a man's got to bring ass to get ass. But you'd better get your ass gone. Listener.
Words to live by.
Bye.
Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's.